Oh, I'm starting. I'm the lead. Welcome, everyone, to the AEW Collision Review Show. I mean, you're the sheriff. I'm just a deputy, but I guess right now I'm maybe a mayor.
Time to prove yourself or lose your badge.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Wearing my Shane Taylor promotion shirt on the front. I got my Ravens shirt on the back. I'm 1-2 in winners, but we'll talk about that later. What's up, everyone? What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining us here on a Saturday night, a cold Saturday night in most of the world. Hopefully you caught that Ravens demolition of those stupid Texans from Houston so they can go back to guarding the border or whatever people in Texas do for fun. And I'm sure nobody cares about the Packers and the 49ers. But I am joined by, who I thought I was being led by, but I'm being joined by Tamara Davis, our very own sheriff, our head law officer in charge. What's up?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I guess that was a miscommunication there. But guess what? We're here. We'll make it work. We're here with you to review this Collision show, which was actually a good show. Happy to be reviewing it, in my opinion, but I'm sure we'll get into it.
I mean, before we get into that, I have a
yeah, but it's Florida though, so
you're Florida, yeah. Shut up, we don't care. Pay attention to your job, you know. All right, so Sheriff, I have a couple things to you. One, I really wish you were wearing a white turtleneck right now because all you would be is just a head.
Because my background, right? It's a little off white, but this black, I needed to separate myself from the.
No, usually you have the green screen, but like you could have been like oh my God, Woody Allen's nose in Sleeper.
Oh no, the green screen is it's not fully retired. I'll bring it back, but when I do, I'm gonna actually green it up and actually put a background there. I like your seal there. Maybe I'll do a seal, or maybe I'll do, I don't know.
She doesn't know what she's saying. He thinks he's a dog.
What's his name?
It's Sparky. Spot.
Sparky Spot.
Sparky Spot. That's right. Double S.
Wins and losses matter with the rankings coming back. I did see that.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about that for sure. But listen, I want you to keep that green screen retired, and I want you to invest in a white turtleneck so that you're just from now on just a disembodied head on TV. It would be so Max Headroom, but that would be epic.
If my sheriff was a floating head, I'd be very intimidated.
Yeah, well, that'd be awesome. Sheriff as a floating head is intimidating. It's like Phantasm.
Doof.
You know, Phantasm with the silver ball that they would burrow into people's heads and kill them. It had a sharp can opener that would come out like a Swiss Army knife.
Oh, that sounds intimidating, I gotta say.
Yeah, it was. All right. So enough of the chitter chatter. I may shock the world, but I think AEW might be on a little roll. Now, I did not like Dynamite very much, but their ratings were high, and those who watched the Dynamite review show might be surprised that while I didn't like most of the show, I did like the Hook Samoa Joe match. I thought it told an excellent story, and they did what is almost impossible. They successfully got people to boo Samoa Joe at the end. So, chef's kiss. I don't care that he kicked out at 1. I don't care about any of that stuff. The whole point of that was to have a sympathetic face that pretty much everyone loved, being demolished and being tough and being demolished some more, not being rewarded for his toughness, but punished. And they actually made Samoa Joe the unbooable booed. So good job with psychology and storytelling. Rarely done and well done. And then Rampage, which is generally a throwaway show. Okay, the first match was completely throwaway. The second match arguably was throwaway, but there was nothing wrong with the match per se. But the back 40 minutes were pretty enjoyable. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good Rampage. And Collision, it was okay too, but we're going to get into that. The show emanates from St. Louis, Missouri, which they proclaimed as being one of the great wrestling cities. I guess historically so. It might have been, it was a territory, NWA.
They gave us Orton, so.
Yeah. Harley Race, So our first match is some guy named Jon Moxley and one of the greats, Shane Taylor. Now, Tamara, I know that you are a big Shane Taylor and Shane Taylor Promotions fan, like all of us here at Unpopular Review are. Because I support local indie wrestling. Can you tell us a little bit about Shane Taylor?
I'm a big Shane Taylor fan. Is that the what we're?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That's the storyline.
Shane Taylor, actually, I'm a big Shane Taylor fan, as is everybody at UPR. Shane Taylor is actually the reason that I have a house to live in. He bought my house. He also put the food in my fridge. I have nothing but gratitude and love for Shane Taylor. I can't say a bad word.
Yeah, not the cheap stuff. He sends us all homecrash.com.
Not the cheap stuff. It's Trader Joe's stuff, I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, for you maybe. For me, it's homecrash, but it comes with free breakfast for life as long as you're a customer. So yeah, Shane Taylor Promotions. So for those of you who don't know Shane Taylor, and you can be excused if you do, if you're only a casual wrestling fan, and even if you're only a casual AEW fan, because he's only been on AEW TV probably about 8 or 9 times, and at least half of those were promos and sort of hidden in various on-again, off-again feuds.
I think he's been in ROH too.
Yeah, well, he is in ROH, but let's not fool anyone. Nobody watches ROH. And there's 3 of you out there in the world that are. No, I'm aware that there's probably still 6,000 to 8,000 subscribers of Honor Club in North America and probably 3/4 of those watch Ring of Honor. That's it. I watched Ring of Honor, until the Ring of Honor ended. I was actually at Final Battle, the final battle before then they pretended they were doing a rebranding and a reimaging, and then Tony Khan bought them, and everyone got excited, and now it's basically just AEW, darker than dark, de-elevation, elevated.
Tony Khan was never going to make money on Ring of Honor. That was a pure passion buy.
Well, Tony Khan's never going to make money in AEW at this rate either, but that's another story for another day. Point is, if you don't know Shane Taylor, tough guy, can really speak very well, smart guy, smart businessman. Actually, one of the first unpopular review interviews was with yours truly, me, and 5 members of Shane Taylor Promotions. And if you want to see me do a terrible job, that's the place to do it, because it was my first sports or wrestling semi-celebrity type of interview, and I was expecting 1 person. I got 5. So imagine, my surprise. Anyway, if you don't know Shane Taylor is an African-American gentleman who's built like a Samoan. That's pretty much all that you need to know. He basically is built like Solo Sikoa. Big bottom half, big, thick, like his head, although big, looks too small for his body, because his body, it's like you're built on like almost like a pyramid.
And I will actually say something very good about Shane Taylor. Him and Jon Moxley had really, really good chemistry in this match. I think they both have a similar style of wrestling, although Moxley bleeds a lot. I don't really see that a lot from Shane Taylor, but they had really good chemistry in this match. Like when they came out, like they were just throwing hands like immediately. It was a really good opening match, I gotta say.
Shocker again. I'm going to agree with you. First thing I noticed though was that apparently the Suicide Squad promotion that was going on earlier in the week was done. It didn't translate to Collision. I guess Collision's not a big enough show for it. So no Suicide Squad sponsorship, which made very little sense when you have Jon Moxley, who's basically trying to commit suicide by one razor blade cut at a time, sometimes 2. But yeah, this was a great match. This was a Jeff match. This was people just throwing haymakers. And Shane Taylor has a boxing background. He wrestles like a heavyweight. He doesn't wrestle like Brian Cage trying to flip and flop all over the place. He's a heavyweight. There was a segment where Jon Moxley was trying to pick him up for I think his Death Valley driver, but he couldn't hold him, and Shane Taylor fell on top of him and almost got a 2 count. Shane Taylor was accompanied with Lee Moriarty, and for whatever reason, they showed the recap of Jon Moxley from Battle in the Valley wrestling Shingo Takagi. Normally, I would say that New Japan would have paid for that time, but since it's Tony Khan, he probably volunteered it because he's a dumbass. And apparently Shingo Takagi and Jon Moxley used to be friends, but they're not anymore because they had a match and bled. But my understanding of the Blackpool Combat Club was that if you want to fight together, you have to bleed together first. So I don't know. Anyway, that's in New Japan Strong. That's another universe entirely. It's not necessarily canon, so we don't care about that. Lee Moriarty was wearing a Dennis Rodman shirt, so I'll give him a nod for that. In no other way is Lee Moriarty useful, or does he have a future? But this was a slugfest. Moriarty got involved in the outside. apparently commentary kept talking that there were questions surrounding the Blackpool Combat Club and who was in charge and who was really running it. I have not seen this or heard this or seen it inferred on any AEW programming. Despite being a vocal critic of the show, I've never missed a single televised episode of any AEW television show. I have missed a handful of pay-per-views. So am I missing this story where there's dissent within the Blackpool Combat Club that they're not?
They're introducing it.
Oh, I see. So commentary just introduced. So commentary is now introducing the story.
And Moxley, he spoke a bit after the match about that.
He did indeed. Now, my favorite part of this, the non-match part of the match, was when Lee Moriarty was joined with some members of the crowd. But because Lee Moriarty is so unintimidating and so average-sized, the guy he was joined with in the crowd was not only not afraid of him, but Moriarty backed away and walked off, and the guy was still jaw-jacking at him, even though Moriarty was hiding on the other side. And this was not a big guy; he's just the same size as Lee Moriarty. So anyway, at some point, Moxley had Shane Taylor was going to try to like go on top of Moxley and pummel him, forearms like the Blackpool Combat Club does. But instead, Moxley blocked that and put him into the triangle. And this was low and slow and grinding. And it looked like this might be the submission. And actually, probably most people would have hated it, but I would have loved it. I thought that was great. But Shane ultimately got his wits about him. He picked him up and had a sort of like a half, what do you call it, power bomb? Half power bomb? Half pipe power bomb? Sheriff, you hear me? You there?
Yeah, it paused a bit, but you're good.
All right. But the match went on anyway. Moxley got Shane Taylor back in the rear naked chokehold, and he eventually passed out. And while the commentary was saying how he wasn't going to give up and he wasn't going to lose, he wanted to show Lee Moriarty toughness. Lee Moriarty didn't look like he was particularly impressed with the lesson that Shane Taylor was throwing down there. He was not impressed by his leader losing there. So I guess that's a little story to be continued on Ring of Honor in front of 5,000 to 6,000 dedicated fans, and maybe brought up again in 3.5 months on an AEW Rampage near you, and then someone will pretend it's long-term storytelling. As you mentioned, Mox stays in the ring. He's going to cut a promo, and he's pissed off, and he's hungry, and he ain't taking no crap in 2024. Honestly, I don't know what's new about any of this. I thought he always was. He wasn't targeting any titles. He wasn't naming any names. But he did say that any teammates or anyone who wants to face him, all you have to do is keep up. Okay. So I guess that's what you're alluding to, that's the underlying story about who's in charge of the Blackpool Combat Club. But
yeah, he's like, I mean, obviously as teammates, as a group, you have your own goals. Moxley's saying, I have my own goals, and I don't care if I got to run through a teammate to get to them. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I understand that. But I mean, again, the whole premise of the Blackpool Combat Club was, if you want to feed together, we got to bleed together. I mean, so this is...
Well, their thing is that if we want to fight together, we got to bleed together, right? But they're not necessarily friends. It's never actually really kind of been portrayed that way. Teammates, I think, is a good way to say it. You team up together for a common goal. But I definitely think that everybody else in that stable is, besides maybe Yuta, they're trying to do their own thing for sure.
Yeah, well, Yuta is useless. All right. He's right there with the Lee Moriarty and Danny Garcia crowd. And frankly, Danny Garcia might even be above them. All right. Enough about that. We get a Samoa Joe versus Hook recap. We already talked about the top of the show. No reason to recap a recap of a recap. And then we get the Copeland Challenge. That's the Adam Copeland Challenge, but I like to call it the Copeland Challenge. It's not a Copenhagen challenge, but it would be really cool if it was in Copenhagen. Yes, if you're in Denmark, I know it's Copenhagen. Shut up. Nobody cares. And who answers his challenge? Young, feisty singles wrestler Dante Martin. No, he's part of this three-man group, or one night he's not doing that. He's in a tag team. And as soon as I saw him, I groaned, because I'm like, great, another 10 to 20-minute match where we already know who the winner is going to be. So I was not particularly...
Isn't that most matches?
It wasn't with the first one. I mean, I was interested in that matchup, and listen.
You didn't know Moxley was going to win.
Yes, no, I did, and I have to say, for the first hour, I actually wish they would have surprised us and had the underdog win every one of those 3 matches. And I think that would have been a real shock the world kind of thing, and really show the world that AEW we're different now. We're going back to our roots. That would have been really cool. But maybe I'm just being contrarian. Anyway, despite not being excited by the match, there was absolutely nothing wrong with the match itself. It was fine. It was, first of all, it was only 10 minutes. And the big move was that Dante Martin was coming off the top rope, and Adam Copeland caught him with a spear sort of mid-flight and then hit him with the grindhouse submission. I mean, 2 submissions in a row, which is basically the same submission, sort of. But, big deal. And, well, why don't you comment more on the match? Because I'm sure you have more feelings on it than I did.
This was another match where I felt the 2 had good chemistry. I mean, obviously, Adam Copeland, he thrives on working with people who wrestle like Dante, because he's got such a storied career, like versus the Hardys and stuff like that. And so I thought that I'm glad that he won, because I mean, you're just starting your challenge. You don't want to already lose. And at his I guess promo at the end, he made it clear what his intentions are. Yeah, I lost, but I'm going to keep wrestling. I'm going to build up my record. They're bringing the rankings back, which we'll talk about. And I'm going to come back, and I want to get the TNT title now. Some people might think you're Adam Copeland. Why the TNT title? Why not the world title? It's because his friend has the TNT title. His friend who just beat him and, kind of cheated to do it. There's still a grudge there. So I think that story of getting back to I guess, a place where he could, I guess, redeem himself in that way, I think it's interesting. And I like Dante Martin. I think he's good. I think he's a good wrestler. I enjoy his matches. So I was actually excited when he came out, because I was like, yeah, I think this is going to be a fun. It went shorter than I thought it would, but any longer it probably would have jumped the sharks. So I think that was a good call. I saw nothing wrong with this matchup here.
Yeah, it's not business with Christian Cage. It's personal. We know that Copeland's not going to lose on the Copeland challenge. And my issue with it is I think that he should be killing the people who come out for at least the first 5-6 weeks. And then he meets like tougher competition, or people who give him tougher competition until he finally makes his way to where Christian can't say no. And obviously, at some point it's Nick Wayne, then it's Kill Switch, and then he makes his way to Christian, because that's the way things go. But yeah, match was fine. All right. So as you've mentioned, Tony Schiavone climbs in the ring. He's excited to be with Adam Copeland. Adam Copeland is, talking about how he's going to work harder than anyone, unlike what Christian Cage said he was going to do, which is very, very true. He said, if you want to come after me, you want to take a bite out of me. I'm a big bite. I'm not a Happy Meal. I'm a 5-course meal. And all of a sudden he's like realizing, he goes, yeah, I don't know what the hell I just said, which was actually pretty funny, because he did realize what he said and the implications of it. And then, he's like, uh-oh. But anyway, this was all fun. It was all good fun. And he mentioned something very interesting to me, which, again, I don't know who was the showrunner on these shows, but things within the show make no sense. For instance, commentary making that mention about the BCC before Moxley's promo. They should have said it afterwards. And then Adam Copeland during his promo says, I noticed no veterans are coming after me. It's only these hungry rookies that are coming after me. No veterans want a piece of this. Very true. So a little bit of a spoiler, but later on we have a promo with Top Flight, and Private Party interrupts, and Marquez Quinn says that maybe he'll accept the challenge, who was another, I guess, young rookie. But then at the end of the show, they announce for next week, it's going to be Minoru Suzuki, who is, if nothing else, a crusty veteran. So it just makes.
I think the point about commentary mentioning it after the promo, I think that makes sense, and that would have been a better way, because you were like, well, because the way you interpret it, it's like, wait, I didn't see that, just because of the way the announcer said it. But I'm like, well, they're trying to, like, I guess, incorporate that now. They're trying to introduce that for the new year. And that's what I got from Moxley's promo. But Moxley's promo was a better way to, I guess, serve that up than the announcers saying it the way that they did. And in terms of Adam saying like no veterans are coming, I'm like, well, you just started your challenge. That's not really fair to say. I mean, one person can come out. I guess multiple people can come out, but there's not going to be a line to face Copeland. I don't think, everybody waits your turn. I don't think it's going to be like that. Although that would be quite funny if he's like, okay, I'll challenge anyone, and then the whole locker room just lines up waiting for a turn to face him in a match. Like, I don't know. So yeah.
Well, next week it's only old guys. It's like Christopher Daniels, Luther. It's like
no one under the age of 50 is coming out next week.
Mark Henry's still there. Jimmy Jacobs comes out. Jeff Jarrett. Everybody who's like over 45 comes out.
Ric Flair. Oh gosh.
Oh my God, Ric Flair. Right. Woo. Usually it's not unusual for commentary to sort of introduce a story, but when they do, they usually preface it by saying, we've been hearing rumors, or some of the talent have been talking and telling us, and some of it's been getting to us. We've been reading reports. There's usually something to preface it. This was just a bit abrupt, but I think we're beating that little detail to death, mostly me. All right. So next we see Lexi Nair, who is looking like with Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli. Bryan doesn't have his eye patch. Those are my notes. Those are my only notes here. What I recall is that Bryan's like, Eddie Kingston beating me is embarrassing, but that's the highlight of your career. That's not a good run. That's just a good luck. I do it all the time. A good career is doing it day in, day night. And Claudio's like, just stop. I can't talk about Eddie Kingston. I've hated him for 20 years. Why are we talking about this boob, this loser? So there you go. The Blackpool Combat Club, who totally, these two don't seem like they're on a different page from each other anyway, hate Eddie Kingston, and Ortiz, you're just going to be a victim.
It's funny how even when they agree, they disagree. They both hate Eddie, but somehow they're arguing about the fact that they're talking about Eddie, but they both hate Eddie. Dissension in the ranks for sure.
Right. And then next is Lexi Nair again. I have no complaints about that, but this is what we were talking about before, Top Flight and Action Andretti. They're talking about what I don't know, and they're interrupted by Private Party. And basically the Top Flight group was saying, you guys cheated last week. And Private Party's like, we didn't cheat. I lost my balance. Stuff happens. Like, it happens every day. It's going to happen again. Hey, you guys want to run it back? Sure, we'll run it back. And then, like I said, Quinn talked about accepting the Copeland challenge. But, I don't know if he's actually going to try and stand in the way of Minoru Suzuki, or that's going to be in 2 weeks, or it's just going to be dropped and forgotten entirely. But apparently these two teams are going to run it back again. I don't know where Action Andretti fits in. I'm not exactly sure when this will be. For those who are keeping score on Dynamite, from the second half of the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team championship match through the Deonna Purrazzo versus, who'd she face? Anna Jay match, and the Top Flight Private Party, all of that were the lowest rated parts of Dynamite by like 150,000. Hour one actually had an average of 970,000 viewers. Hour two had an average of 812,000 viewers, and 115,000 people tuned back in for Samoa Joe versus Hook. So it's not like they were lost for the night. They just tuned out. So I don't know why. Tony Khan, who allegedly watches all the numbers and the demographics, obviously is not watching what any real person watches. I think Tony Khan might exist in a different dimension, and so that he's reading numbers for like this Earth that overlaps with our Earth, but he only sees the numbers from this other Earth that he's on. It's sort of like the Spider-Verse, like he's the glitch.
I think because I mean this Private Party and Top Flight match, because that was the match that you said lost viewers, right?
It didn't start. It didn't start with them. It just ended with them.
I see. It started with Deonna Purrazzo.
I would say it actually started a little bit before, but the thing is that you don't get minute to minute. You just get quarters. So hey, it very well could have been the Ring of Honor 6-man that did, but Deonna, the new big signing, the newest game changer, nobody tuned back in to see her. And
because that is because we don't actually know if this is true, but there were reports that Tony Khan, pretty much told the locker room, he's like, the women, you guys are the lowest rated segments week to week. Just want to let you know that. And we don't even know if he really said that, but I did see that a lot of fans kind of killed him for that. They were like, how do you say that to your locker room? You kind of demoralize your talent in that way. Although he is a boss, you got to do what you got to do. But I would say,
it
though,
happens to be the truth 9 out of 10 times. Not always, but it's mostly the truth.
yeah.
Now, you have a point, but he's not a cheerleader. He is a boss. But even though he might have said that to the locker room, I mean, if anything, and not get out to the fans, and they're killing him over, that should galvanize them to watch the women's segments and not to.
I agree. And that's the thing about it, too, because there was a time, he's doing better now, but there was a time where you would get like maybe one women's segment at most. It was back during the Diva Stop Clock era. We were doing that. And then people were mad at him because they thought that he was, but I was like, you guys weren't watching. I don't understand
Well, he says that, I mean, he indicated that for the Continental Challenge as well, that tournament, that he told people to put their money where their fucking mouths are. And he's talking like somebody who's panicking, who didn't get their extension before the 1-year option was picked up for the same money, who was expecting to get a $1.2 billion 5-year contract, or at least 3 times. And in the interim, NXT got picked up by CW, and NXT is a much closer product to Dynamite, and Rampage and Collision perform worse than NXT, and that set the market and the mark. So even if WBD pays for all 5 hours of TV at an NXT proportionate market, he's not getting anywhere near 2 or 3 times, and certainly not billions. And he's heard that his girlfriend that he committed to, that he lavaliered, that he gave a commitment ring to, is seeing other people. In that WBD
that's a funny analogy. I'm gonna actually respond to that, because here's the thing. I think that this is a lot to do about nothing. Number one, I don't think Tony Khan is panicking. Tony Khan has always been like this. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he talks a bit more than he should. Yeah, that too, and he has resting on a Coke face. That's what they like to call it. I think fans are a little bit overblowing this. What AEW is going to get a renewed TV deal, probably a very nice one, because their numbers would serve that. Even though fans don't want to accept or admit that, or they like to argue over numbers all the time, even if they don't stay with WDB, which I think they will stay with Warner, they could very easily go to another network and get money.
There are no other bidders.
The CW wanted Ring of Honor, and Tony Khan said no, because he wanted to stay loyal to his girlfriend over at Warner, which I don't know.
They were going to give him $5.5 million.
But Tony's not new. He's been around. He knows how TV contracts work, right? So when he says, Warner has to do their due diligence, and
Tony Khan doesn't know how anything works. He is the beneficiary of being the son and having a minority ownership in a football team that has one of 32 votes, with a league where the office does the negotiations and the owners just vote on it. And the same applies for soccer, with the most popular sport in the United States, bar none, with the most popular sport in the world, bar none. It's just like being a billionaire and applying to private school. You're going to get into the top private school.
Let me ask you this. You don't think Tony Khan is a big part of why they got their initial TV deal with a startup, unproven idea? AEW didn't even exist.
I think that Tony Khan's bank book is a reason why, and his father's bank book.
He paid for the TV deal?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you're investing in a new product and you know that they have that kind of banking behind them, and the backing of Shad Khan, who at the time was a 1/3 investor, he's probably the only person who's been paid back. That adds a lot. And at the time, the people at TNT were the same people at TNT who liked wrestling 25 years ago. And they wanted wrestling and they wanted live sports. Now, I've heard through my sources that the return on investment in advertising dollars is not akin to other live sports. It's been disappointing. Whether that's a loss or it's just not a good enough profit, I don't know. I'm not even sure that my sources are correct.
Well, they did put out a press release recently saying that their partnership has been a success. There's also speculation that they own part of AEW, which I don't know if that's the case. But if we're believing what they want to tell us, then that partnership has been successful, though. That doesn't necessarily mean that they – well, actually, no. Weren't they expecting like 500K viewers for AEW, and they debuted with 1.4 million?
Everybody listen to me very carefully. Your source for that is Dave Meltzer, who reported that they were expecting that for the debut, not for forever. Also, that's Dave Meltzer reporting it. Let's assume he heard accurately. Once they get 1.4, I tell you that any network changes their expectations immediately. But more importantly than that, ignore all of that. That was of prior management that was fired. The prior ownership is gone. There's new ownership and new management. It doesn't apply thrice over. It's no longer relevant.
Well, in relation to the recent press release, that's new management. I mean, if we want, and again, they can tell us what they want to tell us. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm not putting it past networks to lie for whatever motives that they may have. But if we want to believe what they're saying, they're happy with what AEW has done.
All right. I want everyone to listen to me again very carefully. First of all, I'm not saying this is what it is, but many an owner has said that they have full confidence in their general manager and coach, and that 99 out of 100 times meaning the general manager and the coach is being fired. So this might be akin to a vote of confidence. But the time of year that we're in, that was issued, that was right before the season premiere of every network television show. So it was pump your TV shows up. And the season premiere goes straight into sweeps week, which comes up. And then there's the upfronts. And that's where the ad revenues, the ad rates are fixed for the next year. So, of course, everything's going to be happy sales. And that's why Andrew Zarian always has positive things to say. Not because he's lying, not because he's stupid. It's because he's in sales and public relations, and his connections are in the sales departments. So everyone in the sales department is being told to sell everything. Sell Monet, sell this, sell Max, sell whatever you need to sell. It doesn't mean it all comes true. That happens all the time. We've been hearing about Max for, it's got to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 to 30 months now. Still hasn't happened. Anyway, enough about that. No one's tuning into us for the business stuff. If you want to hear about me ranting about business stuff, you can tune into me on Hammerlock Hangover. All right. So you know what? I think we probably should go to a commercial and then go to the first actual women's match of the night.
Okay. Check you guys soon.
This is good.
You're a virgin!
How can you go 40 years and not have sex?
I just gotta stop trying.
We gotta help the man. We cannot let you go on being a virgin. You gotta highlight your attributes.
The problem most men have is they don't know how to talk to women.
What am I supposed to say?
We've given you all the advice we have to give. Now you got to put it in action.
Party's over. Let's let the virgin get back to work.
The 40-year-old virgin.
Okay. You know any 40-year-old virgins?
What do you think?
Probably.
No.
we're wrestling fans, almost certainly. What am I saying? So the next match was Thunder Rosa. They mentioned that it's her first singles match since the summer of 2022. I thought they said both June and August. I'm not sure which it is, but whatever it is, it's a long freaking time, right?
It's been a while, yeah. I was actually, because I didn't realize that she was returning on this show. I must have forgot. And so I was surprised to see her. I was like, oh, she's wrestling. Interesting.
Yeah, it was cool. She's been, I think, in a tag match and in an 8-person match as well. So, they've been doing the CM Punk thing, getting the ring rust off, and that's fine.
Not bad, yeah.
She was facing Queen Aminata. This is not a spoiler. This is a prediction. By mid next week, you're going to see the Chiron. The Queen Aminata is all elite. And unlike the bounty hunter Brian Keith and Black Taurus, she deserves it. Oh, my God.
Viv.
That's my wife.
Let's move that so he'll.
Yeah, she's so beautiful. So Queen Aminata is actually a really good wrestler, and she's wrestled 3 times on TV this week. So that was twice Wednesday night. She had a match with Chris Statlander, which frankly she carried Chris Statlander. Chris Statlander boobed, as did the ref, the finish because Queen Aminata was over rotated. I think it was Chris Statlander's fault, and the ref kept counting instead of like what the WWE refs do or NXT. They put their hand underneath and they make sure the person puts the shoulder down and they start the 3 count again. So little things like that is what I think drives some people crazy, because it drives me a little crazy because all it does is take 1 extra second to fix it, or 2, 1 to get the shoulder down, 1 to start the count again. But anyway, pretty good match. I think Queen Aminata had most of the offense. Then Thunder Rosa sort of came back and hit her Tijuana bomb and got the win. The crowd was pretty into this match, and it's a cool thing. Now, one thing I'll mention about Queen Aminata is that Steve was right. I don't like to say that, but she was the other woman in the video with Kiera Hogan, and they were talking how they don't like Mercedes Moné and Sasha Banks. Nobody likes her, that they've met her many times and she's never been nice to them. So I take that for what it's worth. It probably means very little in the eyes of Tony Khan action figure collector. But I also
oh my goodness. Well, I'll say this about Mercedes. If you're not liked by, some people in the locker room, that's fine. There's been many people who, they're not liked in the locker room, but you get through it. As long as you don't go punk and just, I don't know, choke out Aminata, I say bring her in. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Although I'm not saying that what Aminata and Kiera are saying are not true. I don't actually know.
I have no idea. I've never been in any women's locker room.
Yeah, in the event that it is true, Tony, don't nobody care. Give us Mercedes. Anyways, Aminata is a great wrestler, and this was a great spot for them to trust her in. You have a former champion who I think they want to bring back into the fold and push again. Thunder Rosa is also someone who wasn't super liked in the locker room.
True.
And that did cause issues, but
I heard a lot of mixed things about Thunder Rosa. Some people love her. Some people say,
even outside of AEW, truthfully.
I'm including outside of AEW.
Yeah, but I like Thunder Rosa.
And her own promotion failed. I'm not saying that's her fault either, but her own promotion did fail.
That was her and her husband had one, right?
It was Mission Pro. It was an all women's.
Yeah.
I don't know if her husband was involved more than moral support.
I think he was part of it, but yeah. Sorry, Thunder. I don't know what happened with that, but yeah.
So did Terminus, which was Jonathan Gresham's promotion. So did Control Your Narrative, that was EC3's promotion.
CYN was DOA, Dead on Arrival.
Yeah, but they thought that they were appealing to a certain demographic, MAGA. And
they were.
And apparently they're already following one cult. They don't have room for wrestling in their devotional.
Their top guys left for WWE the second they could. So,
as any normal person or rational person, a person needs to eat food should, or AEW. I mean, or even for that matter,
just a company that can pay you. Actually,
any place that can pay you, especially if you can also supplement your income from other places if you need to, like Impact. All right. So yeah, Thunder Rosa with a big win. I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure the crowd was that into her. I think that they were as into Queen Aminata, which is a little bit weird, but not entirely undeserved. But I think that when Thunder Rosa first came to AEW, it was a really big deal. Like, their women's division was really very indie. And Thunder Rosa was like the first, like, she like left NWA mid-contract and came in and like she was a big star, and then a bunch of things happened, and then she's not been around. And since then they've added 20 women who have, bigger reputations than her and, are just as good. And I'm just not sure she feels like a big deal. I mean, people are expecting Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, for God's sake, any second. I just think the Thunder Rosa has
the feeling's not the same, right? Like, I do remember when she was on her rise before her first or her only world title win, where she would basically do dark matches before the show, and she would come out, the crowd would go crazy for her music. A lot of people were really excited to see her take the title off Britt, and how it went. And she got injured, to be fair. That happened too.
A long time, and
you know what? In this business, it passes you by. I don't know what to say.
I think that's what happens. It's like Gordon Lightfoot said. and the feeling's gone, and I just can't get it back. See, I don't know where
The
we
day
went wrong.
the
but the feeling's
music
gone.
died.
No, that's a different guy entirely. That's not Harry.
No,
Chapin.
I was singing a different song.
It's Don McLean. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so listen, we can do folk music or not. I love folk music. Of course I do. I'm 1,000 years old. All right. So next we had Lexi King interviewing Eddie Kingston and Ortiz, and basically Ortiz is doing all the talking because Eddie Kingston is antsy. Usually he's mad because people are cutting him off during promos, but now he's antsy because he doesn't want to talk. And Ortiz is like, we're family. Kingston is looking like, we're not really family. And Ortiz is like, we families fight, but we got back together. Remember, I had that totally awesome feud of vignettes and promos with Santana for 3 months, and we had one match on Rampage, and now it's all over again, and Santana won, and we haven't seen him since. Oh, wait, that's an editorial. So Kingston was antsy and impatient and didn't want to talk, and Ortiz then lies to us and say, Eddie Kingston does his best talking in the ring. No, he does. No, senor. Eddie Kingston does his best talking.
It's true, yeah. Also, Santana's busy being the House of Glory World Champion. Support your local wrestling.
Yeah, he's another one waiting for his contract to expire. Nobody's talking to him because
I agree. I don't think he's happy in AEW, but
I think that's clear. All right, so our next segment is Bullet Club Gold. See, this is the problem when you have so many groups and you write abbreviations, because I'm like, Blackpool Combat Club, now it's feel right. So they come in for in-ring promo. Things don't feel right, boys. The crowd is cheering for them, but they bring out from underneath the stage a giant cardboard stand-up of Juice Robinson. So they now have Card Juice or Juice Board or Juice Box or whatever they want to call them. But the gang's all together again. They've got their Ring of Honor 6-man titles, which are so prestigious. And then the Acclaimed interrupt. And basically their promo is the same one they've cut every other time. Let's be friends because we could be a super group and we would be really terrific. And that's exactly what the world needs, is one faction where you have 3 guys and another faction where you have 4 guys. So you have a super face faction of 7 guys who are trying to get revenge on a bad guy faction who arguably have 5 guys. Now, I'm including Juice and Adam Cole in it, but even if you subtract 1 and 1, you still have 6 versus 4 in favor of the faces. That's not the way wrestling's supposed to work. Anyway, after some deliberations and some back and forth, it looks like the Bullet Club Gold accept, and they totally want a scissor, and they all everyone wants to see Billy Gunn get singles gold. I don't know what singles gold they're talking about. Everyone wants to see Jay White be the world champion, but there are some people who do. And the Guns, they certainly want to get tag team belts. And we already dominate the 6-man division. So, I don't know what's going to happen here, but the boys are back with their father, and we have a super group. I'm sure they'll break up again. I'm sure when Juice comes back, he won't be too happy with this. And, I was half expecting Tama Tonga, who's now done his last job with New Japan, to come out and say, what the hell has happened to Bullet Club here? I let you guys go for less than a year and chaos is ensuing. But no.
I think, in regards to the face heel thing, I distinctly remember, because the Shield was 3 guys.
Mm-hmm.
I distinctly remember it was them versus everybody. Now, to be fair, the Shield was a lot more of a dominant faction than the BCC. So,
well, they were also their most famous feud though was the Wyatt family.
Wyatt family, and that's 3-on-3.
Well,
it was 4, yeah.
When they got Braun
Strowman, yeah, he debuted, I think, in that feud actually.
He did.
Yeah, good times. That's the second mention of Strowman. You're getting a lot of shine here, but I thought it was funny how, they implemented the Rock catchphrase in the beginning, and then they implemented like the DX stuff, which that's akin to like cheap pop. You could say that it's akin to that. But I think that you got to keep the momentum going. I think Jay White is on a good run, so I'm not mad at it. So
I'm not so much of a wrestling nerd that I care about that. All wrestling is reruns. All wrestling is homage, and it's funny. you expect them to do it every time, and they don't do it every time, and the crowd falls for it.
I agree. I don't care too much about it, but I know that that's an easy shot to take. I say that all the time about LA Knight. They say he's a copy of, but I'm like, but it doesn't. Was it fun? Okay, then what's the problem? I don't know.
Yeah, well, more importantly than that is, if it was so easy to just copy The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin and be successful, we would have had 2,000 of them over the last 20 years. We haven't. Nobody succeeded until now. Is it because he's the best, or he's the best looking, with the best body, with the best cadence and the best voice, or is it just that enough time has passed? I don't know what the answer to that is. But whatever it is, they tried it with Mr. Kennedy. I'm sure a million other people thought they were trying it. Ricky Starks tried it in NWA. He welcomed the comparisons to The Rock, even though he was like the Pebble. But whatever. It's fine. It's just, if you're going to do a rerun, do it well, or make sure that enough time has gone by. I mean, arguably, Judgment Day is doing a rerun of The Bloodline right now with Sami Zayn and R-Truth, but R-Truth is killing it, so it's good. And
that's hilariously true and egregious, because that just happened.
It just happened. I mean, arguably, the Bloodline story isn't quite over yet. I mean, Sami,
it's still happening. Yeah.
So I mean, but it's good. So what? I mean, whatever. People just, listen, I am not the enjoy all wrestling, but if something is working, great. I mean, listen, I'm Evil Dose. I look for things to hate. I love to hate watch. I love to hate. That is my hobby. And if I'm saying that's looking too hard for hate, you're looking too hard for hate. Trust me, you should never be further on the hate spectrum than I am, unless you are actually, in the Nazi party. Okay? So or MAGA. Sorry. Was that allowed again? No politics here. Sorry. Bad. I didn't mean that. MAGA to me is something.
He's not the president anymore, so it's not.
Nobody likes magazines. I was talking about the print media. Sports Illustrated went out of business. I'm mad at magazines.
Yeah, rip.
So speaking of something good and fresh and new, Toni Storm and her crew in black and white talking. And of course, Toni Storm remembers Miss Palazzo, and I remember our time in the Rising Sun. That's Japan to you, ham and eggers. And she certainly accepts the challenge, and she's going to beat you, and then she's going to eat you. And something about her being cursed with unbridled sexual energy or something. Whatever it was fantastic.
Watch for the shoe.
Watch for the shoe. Yeah, always duck. You got to duck at the end. And I don't think this was Renee Paquette. I don't think we saw an actual interviewer.
Did we?
I don't believe so. Could be.
I was too busy watching for the shoe. So.
You were too stoned at the time? Okay, gotcha. You were too busy looking for your body?
The rest of my body, yes, right. So that I could show up with it. But as you can see, it's not here.
Right. You were Sleepy Hollow looking for that damn horse and body of yours.
Dang it. Don't you hate when you lose your torso?
Yeah. All right, so next we get House of Black coming out. Buddy Matthews is representing the House of Black. The Perfect Soldier, basically tell the world, Nigel, that he's going to lose the match, versus Danny Garcia, who comes out alone. Matt Maynard is on commentary. Apparently, Matt Maynard's gimmick is now to go on commentary and hope that Danny Garcia doesn't get hurt, which is strange because he's got FTR there. But I will say this. Matt Maynard on commentary is much better than Matt Maynard in any kind of wrestling role, and better than most of their commentators. So Matt Maynard on commentary, okay. The story's sort of weird. The strange intensity that they're trying to pretend FTR and Danny Garcia's friendship is weird. The strange intensity they're trying to put on this feud, although I know there's been attacks and personal stuff. I mean, FTR sort of won it, and it's not over, but it just never felt. It always felt forced to me anyway. But anyway, match was fine. Garcia sneaks out a win, even though Buddy Matthews is doing most of the beating. Of course, he starts beating up Danny Garcia afterwards. Everybody enters the fray, except for Matt Maynard, who's so concerned about Danny Garcia's well-being, but he stays at commentary. But all the refs come out. The entire locker room comes out. It's mayhem. You can't keep these people apart. I saw the Righteous were out there. You had the Outriggers or Outrunners. I saw Anthony Henry. I mean, there were bodies all over the place, and you just couldn't keep these guys from fighting. It's like the blood feud of all blood feuds, and again, the whole thing just leaves me a little bit confused. I know this is supposed to be intense, but it's never felt like an intense rivalry to me. But show me where I'm wrong. Tell me why I was telling lies.
I actually thought that this was okay. This was my favorite match on the show, but I also am a big fan of Daniel Garcia in general. I like his whole shtick. I like the way he wrestles. I like everything about him.
You like his
The
dance?
thing about everybody, it was like a big pull apart. Everybody comes to the ring, and I thought that added to the. You said it left you confused, like the dramatic. Sorry, I just want to highlight that for you.
What's up, RJ? Good to see you. What's going on, man?
I thought they added to the. I mean, they're trying to push stories.
Love RJ too. Sorry, dog loves RJ.
Oh wait, what was the seal's name again?
Dog. It's Spiky Spot. You're a dog. Don't worry.
Well, if you identify as a dog, you're a dog.
Huh?
If you identify as a dog, you're a dog. You're a
That's
dog
right.
to me. So yeah, I mean, I'm surprised you didn't care for this, to be honest.
I didn't mind the match. I just don't understand. I'm talking about this feud and the intensity, and that they felt like they needed to have a brawl that like the entire locker room could, like it's Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. So I just have never felt that this is an intense feud. It just I mean, the one match that should have been intense where they were supposed to disavow their families in front of their families, FTR won the match. I mean, that should have been the end of it. It's just like feud should end, and they should end when there's a stipulation like that. So instead, we see Lexi with FTR and Garcia in the back, and they're going to settle it next week in a cage in Boise, Idaho. No, they're not going to be in Boise, Idaho next week. They're going to be in Bossier City, Louisiana. But thank you, Chris.
Daniel Garcia is not really bad.
And he
Well,
looks
the
so
thing
bad.
is, I think both Garcia, because I think Garcia and Matthews, I think both of them kind of have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think they're kind of in the, and this is very meta, right? But I think they're kind of in a similar place in their careers.
Oh, I mean, hold on a second. Who can criticize a disembodied head from being meta? If anyone's allowed to be meta, it's a head without a body, just floating in a zone of a void of whiteness.
Points were made. I float as a head, therefore I can make the rules all the time. I wouldn't talk back to a floating head, would you?
Well, I just
No,
but I'm in my own white void with my guard dog. So,
oh my gosh, yeah, and you hear that? The floating head said Daniel Garcia is good, so therefore he's good. I think they're both in a similar place in their careers, and they have a lot to prove. And also, even though Matthews is significantly. Well, not significantly, but he's a lot older than Garcia. But I mean, just where they are on the card, and the fact that they're both in factions and they're trying to, I guess, cut their teeth, and I guess show out for themselves. These are probably the workhorses of like their crew.
This is Garcia's third faction in 3 years.
He's working. He's trying.
Okay. There's another difference. Buddy Matthews looks like my He-Man action figure from like 1987. Daniel Garcia looks like a college freshman with an indented chest and a stupid dance.
What college freshman do you know?
I mean, my son, for one.
He looks like that?
He looks better than that.
The thing is, and I gotta say, I was never super
my younger son, by the way.
The Buddy Matthews. His name in WWE, what was it again? It was Buddy something.
Buddy Murphy before?
Buddy Murphy, yeah. I never was
His real name is Matt something, like Matt Santow or something with those.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I was never super high on him, truthfully, though he clearly has talent. He can wrestle. I'm glad that Garcia won this, but I just mean that they both clearly have a lot to prove, so there's going to be a lot of energy, and this was a very high-intensity match. The reason that everybody can't, like, if I'm really trying to, like, if this is my third faction in AEW and I'm really trying to get going, I'm not standing across the ring from Buddy Matthews. You're not beating me. So, there's going to be some intensity there, and, yeah, I'm not losing. So, everybody's got to run out and, stop it. You got to – and Garcia – remember when he got his world title opportunity, everybody in the locker room was behind this guy, tweeting, talking about, okay, it's time for him. Clearly, he has a lot of people behind him, and so it makes sense that a lot of people would show up for him to support him in that way. And in kayfabe, Matthews has allies. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it was like super necessary for everybody to come out, but it furthers, I guess, that visual that I have of Garcia, which is that everybody wants to see this guy win, which is why he's in 3 different factions. He's got a lot of allies, a lot of people like him. So yeah, he's on his way to the top.
Let me tell you what I think. And firstly, one correction. For those of you technocrats, and I'm one of them out there, this is technically Garcia's 4th faction because he was with the JAS and then the not JAS, the remnants of the JAS that seem to remain together. With that out of the way, I think that this is more example of Tony Khan panicking. He wants to get the Collision ratings back up. He got excited by what happened on Dynamite. No Fast Nationals were reported yet on Rampage or SmackDown, but the person who usually reports them is sort of famous for reporting them only when they're bad for Rampage. So it's possible that the Rampage viewership went up. I don't know yet. And I think he wants to bring Collision back up. The Continental Classic brought it over 500,000 2 weeks in a row, which, you know, when the show first started, it was over 800,000, but that's a long time ago. CM Punk is gone, and you know, you take your new highs and you try to build on it. So I think he wanted to have something big. A cage match is something big, but he's had a rash of injuries. So what do? You put in some of your safest workers. FTR and Danny Garcia are safe workers. The credit I will give to Danny Garcia, one of the reasons he's been in so many main events, one of the reasons 2.0 were in so many main events, Ever Rise, whatever you want to call them, is because they're safe. They were trained in NXT and they're safe. They're where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. And Danny Garcia, wherever he went to learn how to wrestle, wherever he trained, he is safe also. They're where they're supposed to be. They don't botch moves. And if they do, they protect themselves and the person they're working with.
I'm sorry. Danny Garcia was barely in NXT. Am I wrong?
Danny Garcia was never in NXT.
Okay. I thought that's what you were saying.
No, FTR. I mean, 2.0.
Oh.
Wherever Danny Garcia was, he learned correctly, or he's just natural.
Yeah.
Buddy Matthews is safe. Aleister Black.
I think he did have one match in NXT though, but sorry, keep going.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Brody King, I don't know. I've never heard him hurt anyone except himself. He's still wearing that cast from when he went crazy at All In, when he witnessed the Punk fight and with Jungle Boy and punched a speaker and shattered her wrist.
I meant Danny, but yeah.
Yeah. But he's a big guy and thrown himself around, and I'm sure if he hurt a lot of people, we would have known about it. So he's got 6 of his safest workers in there that are going to tear it down in cage matches. Big matches do spike ratings. Blood and Guts spikes ratings, and maybe the cage match too. So that's my interpretation of this. So he made it art. He gave it artificial emotion, and that's why everyone ran out. And it worked for the live crowd. Let's see if it works for the people sitting at home. Because I'm going to be watching anyway. Oh no, I'm not, because it's the Royal Rumble. Ain't nobody going to be watching this. All right. All right. In further television malpractice, our next segment is Roderick Strong with the Kingdom. So right now I'm going to stop right here, because when Roderick Strong is the front man, Roderick Strong getting as much TV time and as much talking TV time is TV malpractice. He is a ratings killer. Even in Ring of Honor, he shouldn't have been on as much, but at least in Ring of Honor, they had 20 friggin' people on the roster. They didn't have too many choices, and for a young wrestler, then a middle-aged wrestler, he was good and also safe. You could always say he was the workman. He was the wrestler's wrestler. But at this point, in 2024, it is malpractice. Now, the Kingdom, they're zeros too, but Matt Taven can talk. Or bring out Maria Kanellis. She can talk too. Why do you have her there if you're not having her do this? And then you have him face Matt Sydal, a complete zero who lost to Chris Jericho yesterday. I know why. Because they're in St. Louis and Matt Sydal's from St. Louis. So there you go. But more TV malpractice, a long match. I'm sure technically it was fine. I did not watch more than 3.5 seconds of it, but I know Roderick Strong won. So if there's anything noteworthy to say, then I think it's up to you to say it. Oh, wise oracle of the talking headness.
I'm surprised to see Sydal. I thought he was just going to lose to Jericho and drop off the face of the earth, but I think that they are bringing him here to put over some guys. I disagree about Roderick.
Put him over. I don't think he's ever won a match on AEW television.
I mean, put over as in lose.
but only means something if at some point you won.
Has Matt Sydal won? I'm sure in the beginning he has, but
I don't think so.
Who knows? But
I remember he had that 30-minute match with Kenny Omega, and he lost.
I was not a believer in Roderick Strong. I was not a big fan of him. I'm not gonna lie to you. The Adam Cole storyline, I did enjoy that. I'm sorry.
It's the mustache.
Maybe he used to like have more. No.
Always
he always had the stash.
Yeah, big fan. I can tell you're a big fan.
No, I wasn't. I didn't like Roderick Strong.
Trust me,
he won me over.
I'm a Roderick. Do you remember the first time? Oh, you weren't here yet. The first time I saw David Sanderson. Okay, I think I was talking to Chris. They were like interviewing me for my considered use on UPR the first time, and David Sanderson pops out in the corner screen and starts like, Chris, and Chris is like, get out of here! I'm talking to someone. I'm like, who's that? Roderick Week?
Roderick Week. Oh well, in this picture of Roderick that I'm looking at, he looks a little older. So, but someone said Sydal is a loser. He was a loser in this match. He should have been. Roderick Strong, I think,
has a little bit
of momentum. I liked the Adam Cole storyline where he says Adam and he was pretending to be hurt and stuff like that. I don't know where he goes from here. He's with his friend now. But I think he's shown that he has the ability to have some kind of charisma.
You know exactly where he's going from here. He's on a headlong collision with Orange Cassidy for that international championship at Revolution, because why would he want to face Orange Cassidy after he was in a brutal tag team match when he's really willing to put up the title right then and there? Instead, he wants to make him wait 6 weeks because Orange Cassidy is totally someone who stresses over after worrying about matches, even though his entire gimmick is, yeah, whatever, I'll wrestle you right now.
I was going to mention how there's going to be 6 weeks of television they have to fill. And, I mean, he's shown his ability to, I guess, be able to...
You know how they could fill that television? By having an actual challenger people are interested in for that title.
I think people are interested in it. Yeah.
I think that they are going to drape the Devil's faction with titles that don't matter, like the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship.
Well, they have to give them some gold. Otherwise, the premise of the group doesn't matter.
They're going to be like...
And Cole can't be the world champion right now.
I'm sure there's a scientific term for mini evolution, but I don't know it, so we're just going to use mini evolution. They're going to be mini evolution with many unimportant secondary...
Mutation?
It's a little bit different, but I mean, it would have to be mini mutation too. Anyway, enough about that. Again, TV malpractice. So next we have the main event, which is Claudio Castagnoli versus Bryan Danielson, or with Bryan Danielson. The BCC apparently still on the same page with Eddie Kingston and Ortiz. No Santana. I mentioned that again. And at this point, the commentary mentions that the AEW rankings are returning. So I think this is probably a good time to discuss this. I think that there's been a lot of criticism that I think the whole Hook thing might have broke Tony's brain, because I'm not averse to it, but it's a strange thing. Like, you start the year with it. You don't start it the 20th of January in the last 10 minutes of a Saturday night show going against NFL playoffs. That said, the rankings sort of bit them in the ass in the first place, because you can't really do good booking with it. And so it's not that Tony does it anyway, but like, I offered an improved situation where wins and losses counted, but you also had like more subjective categories, like quality of wins and losses, quality of opponent, like in the BCS, and that you could also have a committee, which allegedly Samoa Joe told us they had a championship committee now that was going to be involved, who could also curry and do favors. And you could have segments where you're lobbying people and giving them more. You could have corrupt members of that committee, sort of like Nick Patrick was the NWO referee for a while. I mean, you could have lots of fun with that and get away from strict wins and losses. But they're bringing back wins and losses, and I think this is sort of because Tony broke his brain over the Hook thing, and we're not sports-based anymore. Now we're going to be sports-based, and everyone's telling me I'm bringing in too many old guys, so I'm totally going to bring in more old guys. But and actually, I want to give Tony a little bit of credit for restraint, because there were a lot of people released from summer to October from WWE and NXT and the grizzled young veterans earlier than that. And the only person he hired was Deonna Purrazzo. And while I'm no big Deonna Purrazzo fan, she certainly, fills a role. She's a technical wrestler. If you like that, she's a good technical wrestler. She's probably as good as Serena Deeb, and Serena Deeb has not been reliable, and she's older, and for whatever reason, she hasn't really gotten the TV time. So there you go. But he didn't rush to bring in Mustafa Ali or Dolph Ziggler or the grizzled young veterans or Mansoor and Mace and AJ Francis, and there were tons of people there were tons of people he could have brought in just because they were XW Elias, Rick Boogs, and he didn't. And in the past, I think that everyone assumed that if there were 25 people that were released, 17 of them would make their way onto AEW television.
But that was never true, because if we're going to be real, WWE has probably released hundreds. This is how many people they were employing. They've probably released hundreds of people from the time that AEW begun, maybe 2019 till now. A very, very, very small percentage of those people actually did end up in AEW. And the ones that did, I guess this is a matter of taste, are the ones that probably should have gone there. Like, I would sign them. Like, if Claudio is leaving, like, I'm signing him. I don't know if Moxley's leaving, I'm signing him, even though this is the beginning. If I don't know, like, if Samoa Joe is leaving, I'm signing him. Like, there's just talent out there that I wouldn't be like, oh no, my
quote. I agree with you on those, but I wouldn't have signed 2.0. I wouldn't have signed Tony Nese. I wouldn't have signed Caden Cole or Caden Carter, whatever his name was. I mean, there's a whole host of people there that I wouldn't have signed. Ari Davari. I mean, there's tons of people that didn't.
There's a lot of AEW names I wouldn't have signed, but it is what it is. That's
for sure. And I think this company, they have trouble making choices, but I think the failure to buy in this case is actually a success. I understand what you're saying. It's always been exaggerated, and you're right. But the restraint here has been rare. I mean, if he hired 10% in the past, he's hired like 1% this time. And when you said that there's a lot of names, you easily could have seen Tony Khan go get like a Dolph Ziggler, and he didn't do that. It is definitely like a sign of, I guess, a change of focus. Focus on
it's very much a change of focus. I think that Tony Khan is intentionally trying to, I guess, recapture what brought them to the dance in the first place. I think we spoke about this before on a different Dynamite review show. The ranking system. That was one of the things that I was most intrigued about when AEW first began, because I was like, that adds a certain weight to every single match. Even the insignificant ones, it's like, okay, this win here, it matters towards something, right? Being more sports-based. When they brought back stuff like the Continental Classic, right? Something that's based on that's very sports-based. Like the way that they did the point system, everything, that's very sports-based. And it was a success in the ratings because the audience that they've cultivated, that they cater to, that's what they want to see. Truthfully, that's what I enjoyed the beginning version of AEW than I did the version that we got a lot in 2023. I think the version in 2023 is a lot akin to not WWE. I would say it's akin to TNA's imitation of WWE, which is sad because, geez, right? But not that it was bad. It's just, I mean, I would watch somebody if I wanted that. So yeah, if I wanted a high version of that, right? And so he's like, the rating system, that's what brought us to the dance. They want to see people who are very, very technical in the ring. That's Deonna. They're bringing in Will Ospreay, which I think is going to be a really big get. I know WWE wanted him, but I think AEW makes the most sense. They got the title on Samoa Joe, who is, I think, the epitome of that AEW style. He's just a hard-nosed guy. Like, and he could talk, and he's serious about his craft. Like, you can't really say shit about Samoa Joe. Like, there's no. And then you trusting your young guys, which is another thing I really loved about AEW in the beginning, especially that very first episode where Private Party beat the Young Bucks in that tournament for the tag titles. I was like, okay, so that sets the tone of what this is going to be. This isn't going to be the elite, like, I don't know, running roughshod with their friends or whatever. Like, we're going to actually get new stars, new faces. And I think that they're putting a lot of stock into people like Daniel Garcia. I think we're going to see more of him. People like Yuta, I think we're going to see more of him. MJF is a young AEW guy that they put a lot of stock into. He's injured now. I do think he's re-signed. We don't actually know, but I mean, it would be stupid by now if he's not. I do think he's re-signed. I think there's a lot of guys that we're going to see them put stock into that in the beginning we wanted.
If he was a free agent now, which apparently his contract ended in, at the end of 2023, if he was a free agent now, he would have been signed already. So yes, he was re-signed months ago. And I can tell you when it was. It was shortly after they gave him the title, and then he also got the Ring of Honor title, and all of a sudden he was working like twice on pay-per-views, so and trying to carry the company on back. But I'm not ratings averse. All I'm suggesting is that the ratings put them in a bit of a pickle at times and made them look a little stupid and had them have a clear job.
You mean rankings, yeah.
And all I'm saying is that you can learn from your mistakes, and frankly, you still can, because they only announce at 9:50 on the Saturday night show. By Wednesday at Dynamite, they can adopt, let's just say they adopt my idea 100% or something like it. But say there's rankings, there's going to be quality of wins and the championship committee, and they're going to turn it and the factor. So it's not pure rankings, but the rankings are going to be weighed heavily in this. That's going to be part of it.
That wasn't a bad idea, actually. I think because they don't have a lot of authority figures. They have managers who have faux authority in a lot of different ways, but they don't really have authority figures. I think a championship committee would be a good way to introduce like on-screen authority figures.
Joe said there was one, and in his promo. But all I'm saying is that you can make it. You can take that and improve it. And when while I do criticize things, when I make suggestions, they're in good faith. If they're not, you can tell. I mean, you can tell I'm being swarmy about something. But when when I'm making suggestions to put something in good faith, because I would love for AEW to be terrific and much more. I mean, I also think they need to make choices. Like, for instance, we had the interview with Top Flight and Action Andretti and Private Party. Frankly, I don't think you need all those guys. They're duplicates of each other. To be
that's fair. Them trying to, I think, build up. I mean, the young guys that
I know, but they don't.
And I think I meant to say that earlier too about the ratings dip. I was like, the Private Party and Top Flight, even though those are two teams that did have momentum at one point, that they did go really, really, really cold. And so just throwing them in a feud, like, I guess, cold turkey like that, you have to build them up. Even though, I mean, how else are you going to do? You got to put them on TV. So you're going to have to eat that if you're Tony Khan.
4 out of 5 of those guys can't be trusted because of injuries, and one of them nobody cares about. Honestly, I would get rid of 4 of them. I'd keep Dante Martin. I think that
Dante is good, and he's consistent.
You need to make choices. But if they wanted a tag team, I would keep Top Flight and I would get rid of the other 3 guys.
I know we kind of breezed past this. The actual main event.
Oh, we haven't breezed past it. We haven't even started with it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll make one more note on this. Okay. Tony Khan was not wrong about the Hook thing, because people, the bad faith actors, we know, the Twitter people that live on there, they were talking a whole lot of shit about Hook, saying that he doesn't deserve a title shot and he's not. Meanwhile, what was Jinder doing? Nothing. Like, what are we doing here? And so he wasn't saying that wins and losses have to matter for Jinder to get it. He's saying that the criticism has to be consistent. It did. If you're gonna be okay with Jinder getting a title shot from the sky, meanwhile Hook is 28-3. I don't know.
I mean, problem with Tony is that he's the least consistent person on earth. But I agree with you that I think it's the stupidest debate, period. Because first of all, AEW and WWE do matchmaking for very different reasons and entirely different ways. Jinder was put in that because his segment with The Rock had like 927 million views. And so it was just riding that wave. And it was and Seth Rollins was supposed to be the fighting champion. So he beat somebody. The only reason that anyone's still thinking about is because Seth Rollins hurt himself. And I think Seth Rollins hurt himself. And I'm not entirely sold that it's really as severe as people are making it out to be. And I'm not the it's a work guy. I just didn't hear things you normally hear, like he flew to Alabama to the Dr. James Andrews clinic to get checked out. Those kinds of things before they make prognostications. But I'm not a doctor. Anyway,
we can move on though. Yeah, that was my last.
Hook was 28-1, and the whole story was he's an overachieving underdog that really doesn't have any chance, but he thinks he does. That was the story. They told that story successfully. I don't get the since WWE doesn't really pretend that the wins and losses matter directly, and AEW does. What's better than 28-1? And he's got a title that's not really. So I just thought it was a controversy that people made up. And in wrestling, you can make up a controversy, and the 30,000 people that are on Twitter go crazy over it, while the rest of the world doesn't care. All right, this match. So this match was basically a story of Ortiz really trying to impress Kingston, but he can't. The BCC, they're too good, they're too tough, they're too mean. Kingston, they keep outsmarting Kingston, they're frustrating him, they're keeping on the outside of the ring. Kingston and those machine gun chops, fans, stop cheering it. It's terrible. It's like the worst Penn and Teller thing. He's showing you the trick. First of all, the chops look terrible, but he's right there doing it. He's slapping his chest every time he's doing it. And he's hitting himself harder than he's hitting the other guy. And you're supposed to tell me Cesaro that's hurting Cesaro? Cesaro's been hit by Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar, The Big Show. Come on, stop it. I cannot tell you how little I like when Eddie Kingston wrestles Japanese style. I don't mind him. Listen, yeah, he looks terrible, but that's fine. If he looks terrible, but he's that tough guy in your neighborhood that's the brawler, then forget what he looks like. He knows how to fight. Like Kevin Owens. By the way, Moxley, it looks like he's been getting himself, it looks like he's starting to get back into shape. He actually looked a lot better than he did last I saw him. So he's probably on some sort of diet. So good for him, because he was starting to get puffy. But I hate Eddie Kingston's the way he wrestles now. He didn't always do this. But in the end, Ortiz, despite his best efforts, had to tap out. Bryan Danielson was literally killing him. He got to the ropes once or twice, but he couldn't do it. Eddie Kingston couldn't get into the ring because Claudio kept pulling him back out and kept, and every time Eddie Kingston tried to escape, he couldn't. And even at the end, Ortiz said, "I'm sorry" to Kingston. This would have been a good time for Kingston to turn on him so that they feud again, even though they never really had a feud. And yes, this is it's like Sammy Guevara and Jericho. It's like Ortiz and Kingston. They're like forever together, and nothing ever changes for the younger guy. But Ortiz is done. He's just the underlying issue between him and Santana is that Ortiz was happy to be getting a big paycheck, and Santana wasn't. He wanted more, and so Ortiz should be happy to continue to get a paycheck. Anyway, so Bryan basically murdered Ortiz. Ortiz apologizes for his being murdered. And Kingston is still upset with the BCC, who may or may not be having internal problems. Take it, Sheriff.
Danielson spat in Kingston's face.
He did. That's disrespect. Yeah, Danielson
was wild.
Danielson was super heel in this. It's
Danielson is such an underrated heel.
It's not.
He's not really underrated. I think people know, but
it's just that he's a heel one match and a face the next match. It's just not consistent.
I think people know he's a heel, though he can sometimes. Even though I see what you're trying to say, I think they should bring back the tunnels. Truthfully, those are interesting. But actually, they're going back to a lot of the old stuff, so maybe they will. I wouldn't put it past them.
I like the tunnels too. I like that there was a heel tunnel and a face tunnel. Makes you think that there's.
And Cody would come from the middle. That was clever because he was like a tweener too.
Well, because he was an authority figure, sort of. I thought that was a little bit indulgent, but listen. But obviously, I think the Lexus King introduction is indulgent, especially for a guy who's lost 5 out of 6 of his matches.
This match here, I like this match, but how are you not gonna like a match with these 4 guys that can wrestle? The big swing that Castagnoli did, that was really impressive. The way he transitioned to that was really cool.
Yeah.
To the Eddie Kingston fighting style. Here's the thing. I'm an Eddie Kingston fan, big fan. I love that guy. I think he's
you want to marry him?
no. I don't think it would work. I would always come second to Japanese wrestling.
Damn right you would.
I'd be like, oh no, what's he thinking about? He's thinking about strong style.
It's like instead of catching your husband helping himself to porn, he'd be like watching
he's helping himself to Japanese tapes.
Koji Kashima matches in MLW in 2004. It's like, what the hell?
You don't love me like you love Kojima. It wouldn't work.
Literally, husband, I would rather you watch Gay. Stop this.
But that's what he's such a mark for that style. But here's the thing: as much as I love Eddie Kingston, he is he can put on a good match. I'm not gonna say, but he's not super great in the ring. Like his old brawler style, that was serviceable, but it wasn't great. And that was probably the biggest indictment on him. Besides the way he looks, is that he's a great talker, but he's not amazing in the ring. He could wrestle. I'm not saying he can't wrestle, but he's not amazing, and he doesn't look great, right? I think that this style actually is something that he's had the most success doing this style than he did his old style because it sets him apart, and also it lends to the. I'm sorry.
Because his boss masturbates to the same thing he does.
See, there you go. You gotta give the people what they want, and by the people, I mean Tony Khan.
The person got it.
But the Continental Classic. I mean the rating show. I mean I think people actually enjoy
the Continental Classic. The Collision ratings went up some. Dynamite, not really.
Well, I just mean in relation to Eddie Kingston. I think people enjoy this style from him. Is what I mean. At least for now.
I think the people who buy tickets to AEW shows enjoy this style, but I think the people who buy tickets to AEW shows would enjoy anything that was put in front of them, to be frank with you, as long as it was under the AEW banner, with the possible exception of Ric Flair.
I've seen segments lose the crowd.
Women's matches. No, I'm kidding.
Rip.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I thought the match was okay.
That's all I had. I thought the spot where he's batting his face was wild, though.
Yeah, I thought the match was okay. It wasn't too long. It was what it was supposed to be. It was what you expected. I mean, obviously I said what I said about his Japanese weak style wrestling, but it wasn't the whole match. And frankly, more of the match was him being inept on the outside of the ring, being kept out of it, having to be tortured by watching Ortiz die, which was actually, again, psychology and storytelling. So while the story is old, it sort of feels like it's getting a reset and it's fresh. And this is one, because of that, this is one where when there's a brawl the next time, the locker room should come out and should be resolved by a cage. I just, again, I just didn't feel that way about House of Black and FTR and Danny Garcia, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, I thought this was a much better Collision than many of the recent shows. I give all the Continental Classic shows a bit of a pass because they really just focused on the Continental Classic matches. So, that was for a particular thing. And if you love that, you loved it. If you don't so much love it, the show never really had a chance for you. But before that and a little bit after, it's sort of been floundering. Really since Punk, it's been, trying to find.
It was even losing viewers with Punk, but that's another day.
Well, viewers, true, but I'm talking about it was losing its. It had an identity with Punk, like you knew who was going to be on, you knew what was going on, you knew it was going to be the FTR, the Ricky Stark show. You knew you were going to see Punk. I mean, you thought you were going to see Andrade, you thought you were going to see House of Black, you thought you were going to see Miro, Hobbs. Like you sort of knew, there was going to be, more of your tough women's wrestlers, the Mercedes Martinez's, the Diamantes. You thought Thunder Rosa was coming back. It was sort of going to be more of the kick-ass old school, like an old school wrestling show. And, and then it came back to more Jericho booking. And now I don't know what it is, but tonight's show was better than this. So I'm going to give this show a solid B.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, what would you grade this? I was going to go A-. I think that the Seidel Strong match, I can see just the way it was placed on the card. It feels like because that Garcia Buddy match, the ending was so chaotic. They probably had to buffer it between the main event to calm the crowd down. So I could see why they placed it there. Regardless, I'm gonna say that was probably the lowest point, as much as I do kind of like Roddy now. But overall, I think that they sustained momentum of the show really, really well. I think the people that worked together, they had good chemistry in the ring, and they did a lot of storytelling, and they introduced some stories, maybe clumsily, but they did a lot on this show, and they brought back the ratings. They did a lot on this show, a lot more than I expected. They just did all of that in 2 hours, and to be able to, I guess, forward that much in 2 hours, and it to, I guess, come together like it did, I'm gonna say A-.
Listen, my B probably counts more than your A-, not because I'm more important than you, but because the people watch the Dynamite review show, and very few of you watched this past week, so go watch it. But a whole lot of you watched it the week before, so thank you.
Well, I'm in the demo, so does it count more?
Yes, absolutely. But but my grades for Dynamite the last 2 weeks were D and D plus.
Yeah, that was true.
So me giving an AEW 2-hour show a B is, I mean, that's basically like confetti.
Your B is an A.
Pretty much it. So, all right, listen. Thank you everyone for listening. You can find me at Icarus Fell MD on X. If you're a really good friend, you can find my second secret account, which isn't so secret if you actually read underneath my Shane Taylor promotion shirt. Shush, Spike, Spot, whatever your fucking name is. Dumb dog. Good dog. And please listen to Hammerlock Hangover with 2 of your other favorite UPR co-hosts, Big Daddy Cool, Esteban Pineapple, and the bad guy, the Grand Slam Poobah, bad guy Jack Ron Jackson. And also listen to my non-wrestling podcast, Garden of Doom, with its companion show, Garden Views, which is more UFOs, cryptids, paranormals, mythology, religion, all sorts of wild and frenzied stuff. Even the legal stuff is wild. It's like the laws of space and cybersecurity and cryptocurrency and all sorts of stuff. It'll make you smarter. It's like having like the world's most entertaining encyclopedia right in your ears. So that's where you can find me, and I hope that you do.
What he said. Thank you guys for watching.
If you want to find Tamara, you can find her by following me at Icarusville ND and by listening to my podcast. That's where you.
If you have a message, he'll relay it to me, guys.
The truth is, I absolutely would. So she doesn't want you to bother her. Leave her the fuck alone. And if you have a message for her, send it to me, and I will forward it along. But we appreciate your watching. We appreciate it more if there's like hundreds of you that watch, and if you hit like and subscribe and share, and if you steal your friends' phones and go to all your devices under all your numerous VPNs and fake accounts where you pirate shit. You're wrestling fans. We know you do that. So subscribe on all of your devices.
Go to the Apple Store, put unpopular review on all of the display devices.
Oh, that is such a good idea. She's so smart. She's so much smarter.
And that was off the dome too. See, it's I have a confession to make. Your dog fed that idea to me.
Oh, good boy. Good boy.
Good boy.
You're a girl? Oh, all right. That's so hard to find around here, you know? Anyway, so for the sheriff, I'm Evil Dose. Stay evil, my friends.
Goodbye.